How to make a wooden chain. The first step is to decide the measurements. In my case, I want to use the chain as a starting point for draping a skirt, from the hips down. Therefore, I measured the length of the wood to the hips of my model. Next, I indicated on the wood how thick I want the length of the chain to be. This was mapped out in a 3x3 grid drawn on the side. From this grid, the corners were cut away, resulting in a plus shape. The links that make the chain are not created separately, but rather out of one solid piece of wood. On paper, make a sketch of how you want your links to be. You want to leave a bit of space in between each link and calculate them in such a way that they fit over the length of the wood. Transfer this pattern onto the plus shape. The shape has two sides. On the first side, the pattern starts at the edge of the wood. On the second side, it starts half a link later. Cut away the outline. This doesn't have to be perfect, as the surface will be smoothed out later on. Once the links are separated, the overall length of the chain will be greater than when it was still a solid piece, as space is created between each link. This means the chain will be longer than the hip size I originally measured, which is actually beneficial as it provides more flexibility when draping and styling the skirt. I have not yet determined the exact finishings or the placement of the chain in relation to the fabric. Once these decisions are made, the wood will be sanded and oiled. The next step is to mark the hollow parts, as well as the inner sides that should be cut off from the neighboring link. It is important to mark it in such a way that the solid parts of the chain will not be interrupted. They have to stay whole. To avoid cutting through these sections, drill holes in the marked areas. These holes will allow you to thread a saw through from the inside, providing a starting point for cutting out the excess wood. When doing this, make sure to cut along the sides that connect the neighboring link before removing any solid material. If you cut out the solid part first, it will become loose while still attached to the saw. If you then still need to cut the inner sides, you will have to detach this piece and re-thread the saw. Now that the piece is prepared, you can begin loosening the links from each other. To do this, I initially attempted to carve away the wood using a Dremel tool. At first I was optimistic, but as I began carving, I realized this would be a slow and unclean process. I began to worry that this technique wouldn't allow me to achieve the result I had in mind. My goal was to carve away only the bare minimum, preserving the mass and chunky look of the links. With this method, it would result in a more slim and rounded look. Therefore, I decided to stop and reassess my approach. Instead of the Dremel tool, I reached for a drill. By drilling holes from multiple angles, the links were able to break free. However, the space I left in between each link was too little for them to move around freely. I tried to hollow them out to create space, but unfortunately this made them break. Therefore, to continue my project, I will start again from scratch, adjusting the pattern to avoid breakage. Best of luck and thanks for watching.